Welcome to the mind of a young, black, African king. DyspOra, man from original skin. Born to a lost world, but he's destined to win. Let it begin. Dome full of thoughts and the knowledge they bring, acknowledging things that make us unique. If you get knocked down, bounce back to your feet. And if you ever get lost, just follow the beat. Let's talk, let the poetry speak. And when you're looking at the stars, I hope you're noticing me. My story is deep, I'm hoping you're digging. The glory that I seek here is barely just a figment of my imagination. I'm trying to make it happen. I'm trying to change the nation. Really hold it down like Isaac Newton's equation. They don't understand the gravity of my situation. I had a dream when I was 8 years old. I was climbing up an endless ladder in the middle of the darkest nights. I don't know what I was doing there, I just found myself climbing this ladder, so I kept going and going and going. Over time, my fragile body began demanding some rest, but I tried to push through. Unfortunately, my body gave way and I decided to catch my breath. And it was at that moment that I realized the whole time I was going towards my heavenly destination, but not once did I look down to see my origins of where I came from. And it was at that moment when I decided to take a look down the ladder, the most scary and inspiring thing happened to me. I saw a sea of people climbing up with me. Now a million questions began running through my mind. And the first one, and most important question was, where the hell are we going? Actually, even more important than that was, why was an 8-year-old boy the one that's up here? Before I could collect my thoughts and really make sense of it, I figured, I must be up here for a reason. And we must be going somewhere, so I can't stop. And with that decision, that mental shift, I got myself back together, put my little body back on the ladder, and started climbing and climbing and climbing. And sure enough, everybody began climbing again. And then I woke up. So I actually never got to find out where we were going. See, that was just a normal dream for an 8-year-old, but 17 years later, reflecting upon it and analyzing it, I realized it was actually a vision and a premonition of the direction my life would eventually take. And that moment actually planted the seeds of the idea that I'm standing up here to share with you today. But before I get to that idea, I have a refugee story for you. See, I was born in the middle of a war, in the middle of a jungle, in the middle of a famine, and on top of that, my family had just been walking for 2 months straight, trying to get from Ethiopia to the next refugee camp. I was not supposed to live, but somehow I did. And even more lucky, my family made it to Kakuma refugee camp. You see, Kakuma refugee camp was a UNHCR camp that was initially built for 90,000 people. By the time we got there in the mid-90s, the numbers had fluctuated up to 200,000 refugees from more than 10 different countries. In that refugee camp, I ended up spending the next 7 years of my life. So I went there when I was 2 months old, I left when I was 7 years old. I saw the most bizarre, inspiring, scariest things in that place. I saw humanity at its highest and its lowest. Now, one thing I remember vividly was seeing so many people suffer from preventable diseases, and due to lack of access to medical resources and doctors. And that initially fueled my first dream of wanting to be a doctor, a neurosurgeon. See, I had an uncle before the war who'd studied in Khartoum and relocated to Norway to become one of the biggest orthopedic surgeons in Norway. So I always had a role model, someone to look up to. And I'm going to channel my inner Nelson Mandela right now to remind every single one of you guys here, who are mostly students, and everybody in this message reaches. Education is still the fastest way out of poverty. When you're an 8-year-old boy in the biggest refugee camp in the world, and you have the biggest dreams, education was the only way out. So I used to take my academic studies like my life depended on it, because it really did. Fast forward 7 years later, we got smuggled out of the refugee camp. Smuggled. By my incredible mother, who, to this point, I'm trying to figure out if she really is Wonder Woman or not. You see, I almost died on that journey. It was a 24-hour journey outside the refugee camp, but that's a story for another time. The next 3 years, we went and lived in a small village in Kenya for 3 years, and that was the most normal phase of my life to that point. When I was aged 10 years old, we got accepted to come to Australia under the humanitarian visa program. You see, we'd applied to go to America, to go to Canada, to go to Norway. See, when you're a refugee, you just want to get out of where you're at. People don't realize that. It's nothing special about, yo, I want to go to Australia. You just go to where you think you can find life and opportunities for your family. Fortunately, Australia accepted me to come here under the humanitarian visa program. So real quick shout out to Australia for that, man. Otherwise I wouldn't be here right now. After I got here, I quickly realized two things. This land provided me endless opportunities, safety, shelter. But one thing was now in my mind. I realized I entered the second phase of my life journey. Survival, part 2. Except this time, I didn't have the support network of a strong community like I did back in the camp. As a matter of fact, the predominantly white society I'd find myself in were the ones placing the barriers in front of me that I had to overcome. But it's all good. Survival was all I ever known, and I could figure it out. I had to learn really quickly what racism was. I didn't know what racism is. I had to learn really quickly that having this smooth, dark, chocolate, beautiful skin was a problem in this country. I had to then learn that this country didn't have a good track record against the idea of blackness. I studied the indigenous experience. I studied laws like terra nullius, policies like the White Australia policy, which was so effective that inspired apartheid in South Africa. We were so good at racism in Australia, other countries started copying us because we were that good at it. Let that sink in. First survival tool I learned, music. Second one, sports. Sports was always special to us because even when we were in those camps, we call it a cheap vacation. Any of us can make a soccer ball, and for that 2 hours, 1 hour, you're running around. You forgot that you're hungry, you forget that you're in pain, you even forget that you're a refugee. It was an escape for us. But I found out here in Australia, if I play sports, I can make friends and connect and bond with people. Human connection is the most precious thing we can use in this world. So that covered that. And it also made me realize why some of the young guys I grew up with, some of my relatives, people like Wilma Bill, Thomas Deng, ended up choosing sports, specifically soccer, and actually went on to become professional footballers, and they actually represent Socceroos right now. The second tool that I picked up, and the most important one, was music. See, I got introduced to music through rhythm and poetry. I realized when I came to this country, the second thing I needed to do was learn how to express myself. I hate being misunderstood. So I had to learn the language. I figured out a hack. If I can use poetry, learning one word will inspire me to go then feel the need to learn 3 more so I can find things to rhyme it with. And surely enough, within 6 months to a year, I figured out English. And then through that, I got introduced to hip-hop culture. Now, that was a critical part because I'm in Australia now, but I don't have a cultural reference to be able to relate my experience to. So hip-hop gave me a global platform which transcended race, religion, or even political beliefs. See, hip-hop was founded in the 1970s by DJ Kool Herc, Afrika Bambaataa, and pioneers like Grandmaster Flash. Rhythm and poetry has been around for tens of thousands of years. hundreds. See, in our culture, I come from the Monjang people, from the South Sudan, on the River Nile, from the cradle of human civilization, and we call it Wa. See, our people have been doing this for so long that it's entrenched as a part of us. And there's no one that's not limited to it. Anyone can make music. I realized that that global culture was so close to my own identity, and I gravitated to hip hop. I also found out the power of the beat, the drum beat. See, studies have shown that a drum beat pattern can influence the limbic system, the medulla oblongata. And actually, if you get a group of people in one location and play the same beat for them long enough, their hearts will actually begin to beat in rhythm. And then the power of poetry added to that. Music becomes an unstoppable force. And then now I had a global culture to attach it to. So my mind began wondering how I can piece them all together. And I think I figured it out. I call it sonic activism. And as a sonic activist, it's my job to introduce what sonic activism is to you guys and the rest of the world. You see, sonic activism is the use of sound, that force that I was telling you about before, that's so powerful, to explore, interact with, and reconstruct the world around us to become a better version of itself. The sonic is the vessel which we use to carry the inspiration and the message. The activism is the manifestation of that message into progressive action. Tupac, sonic activist. Malcolm X, sonic activist. John Lennon, sonic activist. Maya Angelou, sonic activist. Muhammad Ali, sonic activist. You can be a sonic activist. You don't have to make music. Sound travels even when I'm talking. Introducing a friend to a new idea they didn't know before, that's sonic activism. Standing up for someone who doesn't have a voice, that's sonic activism. So now that you know what it is, I'm challenging to see how many sonic activists by the time this talk is over I can produce. Now, I found a culture I can belong in. I found a concept I can attach myself to. What was next? I learned how to survive in this country. Now it's my turn to thrive. I created a superhero and gave him an alter ego and called him DyspOra. That's my stage name when I make music and I present up here. You see, DyspOra does not care what you think about him. DyspOra is on a certain mission. Matter of fact, the word diaspora comes from the English word diaspora, which comes from the Greek word thespora, which means people dispersed from their homeland, people forced to live outside their homelands. Literally personifying my life journey so far. And as a sonic activist, and now using the DyspOra superpowers, I realized that I came to this country when I was 10 years old, and 13 years later, without a single word of English, 13 years later, became the best artist in South Australia. Using those superpowers, I managed to partner up with my brother Wilma Bill and his foundation, Barefoot to Boots, to be able to build a recording studio in the same refugee camp that we grew up in, giving opportunities to these kids who might not have had it. With these superpowers, I managed to link up with the Tim P Foundation and become an ambassador for them. And right now, we're helping put more than 1,400 kids to school back in South Sudan, with an aim to try and get that number to 5,000 in the next couple of years. With those superpowers, I created a label called Playback 808 to give a voice to those that we silence. With those superpowers, I managed to create a voice for myself to be able to stand up against the media when they decide to bully my community. And with those superpowers, you have no idea what I'm about to do next. My scope right now is on racism. That's my next target. You see, racism is a cancer of humanity. It is literally the biggest distraction for no damn reason that keeps us apart from actually unifying and doing the things we can actually achieve as a human race. We need to take this as serious as we take poverty or climate change. Racism is the cancer of humanity. Remember that. Einstein said it. Seems to be a good ring when Einstein says things. So remember that he actually did say that. There's a generation that I'm here to represent of new Australians, as you call them, who've been living on the
fringes of your society for so long, and all they've ever wanted to do was contribute to the society. A generation that we can tap into the potential with minimal investment and maximum outcome, because all they want to do is belong and add to the narrative. I'm here to represent a generation of new Australians, and I call them the AustrAliens. They want to be Australian, but they get treated like aliens, so they're stuck somewhere in between. I'm talking about the kids that just want a fair go when they rock up to school and get bullied because of the color of their skin, or the religion they worship, or their political ideas. The kids that want a fair go when they show up to a job interview, but they don't even stand a chance because their names are not Aussie enough. The kids who want a fair go when they get over-policed and then end up in the justice system and end up getting longer terms than any average Australian. Yet, when they succeed, we call them Australians. See, I represent these kids or this group of AustrAliens because I am one of them. When I succeed, I am Australian, but when I fail, I'm African. What does that leave me with when it comes to choosing my identity? When I succeed, I'm Australian. When I fail, I'm African. I want you guys to remember those words very closely because they're the summarization of my experience for the last few years here. But it's all right. I'm here now. I've lived here for the last 15 years. I'm as Australian as I can get, even though I come from South Sudan. I'll be able to call out the problems we have and said, you know what? We need to fix this. So, one thing I want to remind you is an African proverb that I grew up on. A child who's not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. So let's embrace these children and anybody that wants to be a part of this beautiful nation and no more leaving people on the outskirts. And I'm going to use my story as an example. All my life, all I've known is trials and tribulations. I've managed to get those trials and tribulations to help build up my character. That character has helped me build unlimited hope. But I did not stop there. I've been cursed enough to see what it's like to be in a refugee camp, see kids suffer for more than 5 years. So I'm hoping to turn that hope into progressive action. And I'm hoping to inspire every single one of you guys today to start your journey on becoming a sonic activist. Thank you.